I ordered what I thought was going to be a celebratory beer. It was a Bud Light. And I went to drink this Bud Light. And at the last moment, I put it down and I thought, you know what? In 1 year of not drinking, all these amazing things have happened. Why don't you just keep going? And so I just handed the beer back and I said to the barman, actually, I don't need it. Gave him a tip. I walked out and I haven't picked up an alcoholic drink since.
Right now, about 60% of Americans regularly consume alcohol. And according to the World Health Organization, 39% of all adults around the world drink consistently. Some people drink socially, some to reduce stress, and for some, it's a prerequisite for fun. But what if by quitting or reducing your alcohol intake, you could see an improvement in your relationships, your health, your productivity, and even your appearance? Our guest today is entrepreneur, journalist, and author James Swanwick. In 2010, James had his very last drink. As a result, his life improved dramatically. And it was pretty good to begin with. Now he helps others take control of their drinking through his 30-day challenge and Project 90 programs. In his podcast, Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, and in his book, The 30-Day No Alcohol Challenge, Your Simple Guide to Easily Reduce or Quit Alcohol, James teaches casual drinkers how to change their relationships with alcohol. And today, James is here with us to share, among other things, practical tips on how to reduce your desire for alcohol, how to socialize without drinking, and the myriad benefits of being alcohol-free. James also knows a thing or two about achieving quality sleep, so we'll probably get into that as well. It's great to have you with us. You're in London, James. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here, ladies. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to just start off right away and just share with you and our audience my alcohol relationship, which is that I never started because I was afraid I would become an alcoholic, not because there's alcoholism in my family, but because I struggled with eating disorders in my teens and 20s. And so I just never, I did have a glass of wine under duress when I was 16. When I say under duress, I was at my boyfriend's birthday and his grandmother is French, and they both insisted I drink the wine. And I drank it so fast that they thought I loved it. The truth was, I didn't like it. I just wanted to get rid of it. So, and I think I was kind of pissed off at myself for succumbing to the peer pressure. And that happened once more when I was 21 with a boyfriend who was angry at me for not drinking. He felt like I was being too controlled and that I was reacting out of my fear of not wanting to be, to become an alcoholic, even though I had no signs of, I was projecting. But also the truth was I didn't like the taste and I wasn't crazy about how drunk people acted. So there you go. That's my history with alcohol. Dotsie.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. As you know, Alexandra, pretty much opposite story. I had a severe cocaine addiction 30 years ago, which I just quit overnight because I didn't want to do it anymore. So I guess I'd have to really look into the definition of addiction, but I did it a lot and then I stopped doing it and I haven't done it since. And so I haven't been fearful of becoming an alcoholic. Well, I just never have. And it's not really in my family, but I guess because of that experience with cocaine, I was like, oh, I can just stop if I feel like stopping. But I drink wine with dinner every single night and I love it. And I feel great and I sleep great. But I'm also super open, as you know, Alexandra, from this podcast, to taking challenges, making changes, doing things differently. So I'm excited to dive in. That's me.
Thank you, Dotsie. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that.
We'd like to hear your experience, James.
Yeah, I'll round out the trio.
Exactly.
I was a socially acceptable drinker growing up in Australia, my native country, in that I would have 2 or 3 drinks most nights of the week. And on the weekends, I would drink considerably more. Now, I never considered myself an alcoholic. I didn't get a DUI. I didn't wake up in a ditch. I didn't have a rock bottom moment. But, I was a solid casual drinker for 20 years. And I got to my mid-30s, 35, in fact, and I was in Austin, Texas in 2010. I was at the annual South by Southwest festival. Mm-hmm. I had I had 2 Bombay Sapphire gin and tonics at an industry party on a Friday night. I went home to my hotel, went to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, I looked in the mirror and I just looked weathered. I looked tired. I was operating at about a 5 or a 6 out of 10. My sleep wasn't great. I was carrying about 25 pounds of unwanted body fat. I had crow's feet around my eyes. I mean, not from just the Friday night. I mean, this had been accumulating over some years. And I just felt blah. You know that word blah, where you're not rock bottom, but you're not firing on all cylinders either. You're just kind of existing. That's kind of how I felt. And so I went to this IHOP, an International House of Pancakes, right next door to the hotel. And I'm in this IHOP and I'm looking at these menus and I'm looking around, and there are some, shall we say, not particularly healthy looking clientele in the IHOP. And I'm thinking, what am I doing in an IHOP? And I could taste the gin on my mouth the night before. And I looked out the window and I just said to myself, you know what, James, just take a 30-day break from alcohol and see what happens. Now, just to be clear, in 2010, nobody was really doing 30-day challenges. No one was, this concept of stopping for 30 days wasn't really around. And so this was kind of like a revolutionary idea, at least for me. And I did. I stopped for 30 days. And in 30 days, I lost 13 pounds. It just fell off me. I started sleeping better. I looked better, had more clarity, focus, and energy. And during that time, I had an opportunity to audition to become a sports center anchor on ESPN, you know, one of the most famous sports television news shows in the world. And to my absolute amazement, they gave me the job. And I just thought, well, this is pretty good, this not drinking thing. I mean, in 30 days, I've lost 13 pounds. I got my dream job. I'm sleeping better. I look better. I'm attracting a much higher caliber of person into my life, which was something else I noticed. I thought I might just keep on going and might go for 60 days, see how I go. And so I just kept going and going and going. And then I got to a year. And in a year, I had attracted this amazing romantic relationship. I'd run a half marathon. I joined a gym. I was happier. I wasn't as stressed or anxious. And I was back at the 2011 South by Southwest Festival. And I went to the Luster Pearl Bar and I ordered what I thought was going to be a celebratory beer. It was a Bud Light. And I went to drink this Bud Light. And at the last moment, I put it down and I thought, you know what? In 1 year of not drinking, all these amazing things have happened. Why don't you just keep going? And so I just handed the beer back and I said to the barman, actually, I don't need it. Gave him a tip. I walked out and I haven't picked up an alcoholic drink since. And that was 2011. So I stopped in 2010. And now I've created this organization that helps people have a better relationship with alcohol, whether that be quitting entirely, which is what I would invite people to consider, or whether it just means cutting back. And, you know, it's transformed thousands of lives now. And, you know, I'm a big proponent of living a mostly, if not entirely, alcohol-free lifestyle.
Was it hard? Was there things that sounds like there were a lot of good things, but where were the challenges?
I felt socially awkward about it in the first 10 days to 2 weeks. In fact, I remember I had a date with a lovely woman named Andrea at the Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, where I was living at the time. And I was so conscious about the fact that I'd committed to not drinking for 30 days that I got to the bar 15 minutes early and I made a deal with the barman. And I said, look, I've got this date coming. When I order 2 seemingly alcoholic drinks, one for her, one for me, can you just make mine a soda water, not actually a vodka soda? I'm going to order a vodka soda, but just make it a soda. And he said, yeah, I got you. No worries. And so I had this whole date with Andrea where she thought I was drinking vodka soda. Anyway, 2 weeks later, we were at the Coachella Music Festival at Palm Springs, 2 hours outside of Los Angeles. And I was there with her friends. And one of her friends said, hey, James, can I get you a drink? I'm going to the bar. And I said, oh, no, thanks. I stopped drinking like 3 weeks ago. And Andrea overheard this and said, that's not true. You were drinking on our date. And I kind of sheepishly looked at her and said, actually, I wasn't. She said, wait, so you misled me. You kind of lied to me. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of did. I'm sorry. And she couldn't come to terms with this. And candidly, the relationship ended almost right there. I mean, there was this trust that was broken. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. Like I would feel that I was thinking in my mind that she wouldn't like me if I told her that I wasn't drinking. But then the fact that I misled her about drinking was enough for her to break it off as well. And so from that point on, I just committed to owning it and telling people that I wasn't drinking, the reaction or response that I got from people varied, I have to say. My good guy friends tried to sneak vodka into my soda water, which I was I wasn't upset, but I was disappointed, I guess is a word. I'm like, this is something I'm trying to do. Like, why are you trying to do this? And they're like,
that's such a guy thing. I mean, women would never do that to each other, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Other people would look at me with this, but what, you go out and but how do you have fun? That was a very common question. And then what I found was as well, women in particular, and less so men, but a lot of men as well, many were kind of looking at me with admiration, like, wow, that's something I would really like to like. Like they were looking at me through the lens of, it was something that they would like to do themselves, but they'd never been able to get over that social awkwardness to actually try it themselves. And so they were kind of asking me questions about it with admiration in their eyes and with inquisitiveness. And so I kind of earned a healthy level of respect from people. And far from them thinking that I was some kind of alcoholic, which I wasn't, they ended up thinking, oh, that's it. I might try that. I think I'd like to try that as well.
Okay. Patsy, have you ever felt pressured in social situations?
To drink or not to drink?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. But I mean, I have shared on this podcast that people know I'm an extreme introvert, so I'm rarely in social settings, but when work does put me in them, it definitely helps me to have a conversation, because I will and have been known to sneak out the back door in social cocktail-ish style scenarios where I don't know anyone. Yeah, but I yeah. I'm curious, just to kind of ask the broad question to you, James. Given that you have this wonderful course, I'm sure you've done a deep dive into understanding why people drink in the first place. Are there 5 different main reasons, 3? Like, what have you uncovered as you have helped so many people on this journey? Why are people even drinking?
The biggest thing is just cultural conditioning, plain and simple. Cultural conditioning. I mean, for decades, it's been ingrained into our mindset that alcohol is fun. It's a stress relief, which couldn't be further from the truth. I'm happy to dig into that in just a moment. I mean, think about it. If you go back to when you were little girls and I was a little boy, and we had parents, if our parents were still around, and our parents would drink alcohol in front of us, and they would say, oh, no, little Dotsy or Alexander or James, you can't drink now. You can drink when you're older. You have to be like 16 or 17 to be able to drink. And so what is that actually doing to a child's mind? It's implanting the idea that drinking is a grown-up thing and that it's almost like a rite of passage. You get to drink later on. Once you've gone through that process, then you get to be rewarded with drinking this attractively packaged poison, which is what I refer to alcohol as, attractively packaged poison. And so it's conditioned in our mindset that one day we get to drink. Now, the first time we actually had an alcoholic drink, I submit to you that it probably tasted foul. And you were like, oh, that's disgusting. Yeah, I see you ladies nodding your head.
Oh, yeah. I could never understand.
You definitely have that. I do not have that experience.
Oh, okay.
So this is a foreign substance, right? This is something that's not supposed. If we believe in the laws of nature, okay, this is something that we're not designed to consume, right? This is a man-made product that we consume, all right? And everybody from the waiter to the waitress to the friend to the family member is a smiling assassin. And by a smiling assassin, I mean the cultural conditioning means that when they offer you a drink, they do it with a smile on their face. Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. Can I get you started with some drinks? Oh, hello. Welcome to the house party. So great to have you here. What would you like? I've got wine. I've got vodka. We've got beer. What can I get you? What can I get you? And there's a big smile on the face. So unconsciously, it's implanting this idea or cementing this idea that alcohol equals bonding, it equals connection, it equals fun, it equals taste, it equals sophistication. But when we strip all of that away, all it is a bunch of toxins in a very attractive bottle. That's all it is. And we see all of this marketing. We see all of this marketing all over the world, teaching us that it's fun. And we see beautiful people kind of joking around, and there's tourism brochures trying to get people to go to their countries. They've got the man and the woman sharing a beautiful glass of wine over a candlelit dinner. And in the Super Bowl, we've got funny guys acting goofy, promoting Bud Light and Coors Light. And so this cultural conditioning is like being reinforced all the time.
But there is something, I mean, as someone who watches people imbibe, I do see, and even Dotsie said that she feels looser when she drinks. I would imagine that people don't realize how they can be just fine at a party if they're not drinking. They just think they need the drink. But it does do something, James, right? I mean, it does change people. But is it an imaginary crutch that really you're saying they don't really need if they really experimented without it?
We don't really need it at all. I mean, I am a great example of that, because I haven't drunk in 13 years, and I was living in Hollywood, California, like the most hedonistic place on earth, almost, if depending on how you would live your life there. I mean, I went to the Playboy Mansion before Hugh Hefner passed. I went to the Oscars after party. I went to Elton John's Oscars party at the Pacific Design Center. I went to the MTV Movie Awards. I mean, I went to all of those Hollywood parties where there are open bars, free food, free booze, hedonistic lifestyle. And I'm an Australian in America, right? I'm like, I've got to take advantage of this. I'm going to have the most fun. And I did it without drinking alcohol and had an incredible time. I mean, I was dancing on a table at the Playboy Mansion, completely alcohol free, having a wonderful time. So I know that this is possible. The other thing, just to note, I mean, even if we take away the cultural conditioning and we just look at the plain facts, okay, and the facts. Now, in 2022, they did a study of 35,000 middle-aged Brits. And what they found was that one seemingly innocent glass of alcohol per night. And Dotsie, you said that you have about 7 drinks a week, right? One drink a night. I think you referenced at the beginning. Yes?
Yeah, it's always wine.
Yeah.
To be
so
specific.
what they found was that 1 drink per night, 7 standard drinks a week, was enough to cause some gray and white degeneration in the brain. So gray and white matter in the brain. The bumper sticker for that is 1 drink a night is enough to cause some level of brain damage. Now, how much brain damage? It depends. Genetics depends on how many years or decades you've been drinking before that. But 2022, latest neuroscience, 35,000, 1 drink a night is enough to cause gray and white matter damage in the brain. That should be a wake-up call to all of us, I think. Alcohol's reputation is crumbling. Never have there been more alcohol-free products on the market. Never have there been more studies coming out highlighting these health consequences. Never have there been more millennials, certainly, turning their back on alcohol. There is a tidal wave of change that is happening. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I promise you this, we will get to a point, it might be in 3 decades, it could be in 30 years, where we are going to look back at alcohol with the same level of disdain that we look at cigarettes. It's happening. It might be 20
and
years.
Eating animals.
Right. And eating animals. How does tell us then the physical, because you're right that there used to be the information that moderate drinking might even be, especially wine, might even be more healthy than not drinking at all. But now, recently, they've come out, and maybe it's because of that study, that no drinking is better, is the best option. Can you tell us how alcohol affects our body? Like, give us some, I heard you say something about vitamin D levels and our hormones and our metabolism.
Right. I want to just jump into and add to that question for you. We're definitely in this society conditioned to assume that things we like are bad for us. We just had somebody on that said coffee is great for you. We've had plenty of people on that said it's terrible for you, right? You can find any science that you want to go either way. But I right to Alexander's point, I want to like really dive into like, what is it about the actual substance that's bad? Because it's man-made, but fermented foods are fermented by humans and they're crazy good for our gut microbiome. So why is it, I want to understand why it's bad, not just, I know they found all sorts of things in studies, but like it's actual, like it comes, like tequila comes from a plant and they have to ferment it. Why is that? What happens in that process that makes alcohol bad, I guess is what I'm really interested in.
So tequila actually is the least bad alcohol, interestingly.
Oh, perfect. I like margaritas.
Tequilas are like, yes, let's do this. All right.
Right.
Would you ladies like to guess which are the most bad? And when I say bad, I mean in terms of toxins, number of toxins and the effect on the body. Do you guys want to have a guess?
Scotch. What would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. Something with I would think one of those, what do they say? They call it a hard alcohol as opposed to wine and beer. But am I wrong?
The answer is actually there's two tied: red wine and beer.
Oh, no. So
it's not hard.
Not hard alcohol. Isn't that right? Oh, wow.
No, red wine has the most toxins in it, equally with beer.
Okay, so tell us why there's toxins if it comes from grapes and it's fermented, which is a lot of things. Do they add toxins, or is it just so concentrated that's really hard for our body?
It's more the latter. It's so concentrated. Now, here's the thing, right? What happens when you drink alcohol? Well, straight away the liver goes to work. Now, why are you imagine the analogy of you're clocking in for work. You know, let's go back 30 years and you had to clock in for work. You were working on a factory, maybe. You clock in, start at 9 a.m., you clock out, you finish at 5 p.m. Now, what most people do, is they work throughout the day and then they have a drink at night, right? 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, have it with dinner. Now, what you're essentially doing then is you are clocking in for work. You're clocking the body in for work at a time where you want the body already have clocked out. In fact, you're better off drinking alcohol for breakfast than you are anywhere close to bedtime as it relates to sleep quality, because any amount of alcohol close to sleep time, this is what happens. You're pouring toxins into the body. The body goes, I'm not supposed to have these toxins. The liver now goes to work to try to get it out of the body, but you don't want the body working at a time when you are sleeping. You want your body sleeping. You want your body resting. But most people in the modern world are like, time to clock in for work again. And they wonder why they go to sleep. They can fall asleep okay because they have the drink, but the quality of their sleep is then severely compromised. So, I mean, you may have noticed I'm wearing an Oura ring. We have many clients who, in about a week or two before they join us, when they're still drinking, they will track their sleep quality with the Oura ring, and then they'll stop drinking and they'll track that for the first 2 weeks. It is remarkable, the change. Like, the sleep quality improves dramatically and noticeably when you stop feeding it those toxins. Just another interesting point as well. Do you know that you can take a strand of your hair, Dotsy, and we can put it under a microscope in 7 days, and we'll still be able to know that you had a glass of wine? The toxins stay in the body for 7 to 10 days, and you can see it under a microscope, a strand of hair, that those toxins will show up, which is fascinating. That's how long a toxin stays in the body. So yeah. And
what about, you mentioned your skin and your vitamin D levels. You mentioned your skin today, and I read you said something about vitamin D levels will change when you stop drinking. I'm not sure. Did I hear that correctly?
So here's what happens. Let me ask you this question. What's the body's largest organ? Skin, exactly. Yeah. So when you stop drinking alcohol, what happens is the skin starts to go, okay, good. Now the skin returns to the way that nature always intended it to be. They did a study also out of the UK about 7 or 8 years ago now, mid 2010s, and it showed that people who stopped drinking for 10 days compared to those who continued drinking, the people who stopped drinking for 10 days had 30 to 35% less visible wrinkles and crow's feet around their eyes. They also did another test where they took equally aesthetically attractive faces, and 50% of them had one drink per night for a couple of weeks. The other 50% didn't drink at all. And they asked people to look at these random faces and asked them, who were the more attractive looking people. And what the study showed was that those who were not drinking were unanimously voted as being more attractive, at least just aesthetically. Now, why is this? Because alcohol shows up in the skin. Alcohol dehydrates the skin. And when you dehydrate the skin becomes weathered. Sometimes it becomes, flaky in extreme cases. Just a warning, you do seem to get better looking when you stop drinking alcohol. At least that's what the feedback I certainly got when I stopped drinking alcohol. And many of our clients tell us is that when they stop drinking alcohol and they have stopped for, say, 2 months, 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, people start to go, wow, you look great. Have you been working out? Like, what's going on? Wow, you've got a glow to you. And I always share this with women particularly, because women tend to spend a lot more money on moisturizers than men do. And I say to most women, you can throw away your fancy Neutrogenas and Hollywood sponsored moisturizers, just drink more water and stop drinking alcohol, and your skin will literally glow.
I just want to say, I don't think Dotsie can get any more attractive, but Dotsie, if you want to blow us all away.
You're very sweet. I think it has so much to do with, all of us have, specific lifestyles. And I think for me, there must be a modulator with my extreme exercise. I'm an Olympic athlete, James, and I did tons of sleep tests as we were headed towards the Olympics. And my REM and deep sleep was the same, whether I had a glass or two of wine or not a glass or two of wine. But the difference is, I'm sure that UK study, I bet they probably weren't athletes. I wonder if still probably should do a 30-day challenge, and I'm totally open to it, but that there must be some kind of mitigation, at least with my extreme. It's not extreme anymore, but I exercise every day. I do really hard hikes. I'm sweating a ton, and I'm wondering if that is, because that'll also fight. If I were to eat fast food every day, which I don't, but did that much exercise, it's going to have a different effect on me than if I sat on the couch all the time.
It sounds
I'm wondering if I'm not experiencing, like maybe I should stop exercising, and be like, oh, I should probably stop having wine every night because I don't feel that good.
It sounds like it seems like you have a mostly healthy lifestyle. You exercise regularly, you eat well. And so, yes, it's entirely possible that one glass of alcohol per night, even though the study shows that it's destroying brain matter, maybe you counter that off because you are so healthy, because you are an Olympic athlete, because you're doing all of these other healthy things. Yeah, I wouldn't object to that, or I wouldn't have an opposing argument to that.
Yeah, but then I could even be healthier without it. But I'm wondering if that's why some of the testing has looked the same for me, like that, like especially the sleep. Because I have heard so many people that drink say that it affects their sleep. And I just haven't had, we're all different, but I think it's probably because the other pieces of the pie. Trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
I think, just to sum that up, I think if you're a peak performer and you're in great health and you obviously are and have been for many years, maybe that would counter that, certainly. I would say also just another thing in relation to, I think you guys mentioned the study about a glass of wine being good for your heart health. Now that study has been debunked so many times now, and we're recording this in 2023. We've got the benefit of 30 additional years of neuroscience and studies. What I can say is this: at the University of Victoria in Canada, there's a professor there called Professor Tim Stockwell. He's from the psychology department. And he recently co-authored a comprehensive study that reviewed more than 100 previously published studies on alcohol consumption and mortality. So just to be clear, he looked at 100 previous studies with 5 million participants across those 100 studies. 5 million people, that's a lot. And what he found was that the study results claiming that a glass of wine was good for heart health was completely skewed and completely biased.
Mm-hmm. And probably paid for by the alcohol industry.
Yes. If you dig
always.
Always. So, but I get it, because people want to, like you say, there's always a study for this way, there's a study for that way. And of course, if you're a drinker and you don't want to let go of your alcohol, you're going to cling on to that study. Oh, no, they say a glass of wine is good for your heart health. Oh, the blue zone, those people they're having drinking the blue zones, they live longer. Oh, but the Italians, people in the Mediterranean, and on and on and on and on it goes. It's 2023. We've got the benefit of the latest medical technology. We can see the latest studies. We can review it. It's almost getting to a point now where it's getting to a point where it's actually impossible to argue a counterpoint now, and that to the point that alcohol has zero nutritional benefit, has no health benefits whatsoever, and while I concede or I acknowledge that people feel socially comfortable holding something or drinking something, and I understand that, especially introverted people who maybe they feel a bit awkward or uncomfortable in social settings, while I concede that makes them feel better, yes, there are ways in which you can feel better and feel comfortable in a social setting, which does not involve drinking attractively packaged poison. Yes, you can create romance without drinking attractively packaged poison. Yes, you can watch Sunday football with the guys in the bar without drinking attractively packaged poison, and so forth and so forth.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
I once had a friend who said she'd never had sex without being on having drunk some alcohol. Because I think also and tell me if this is right, because like I said, my experience has been so minimal. I don't think you get real connection when you're drunk, but is that true? Or when you're a little tipsy, could that be right? Because that's what I think people are seeking. They're afraid. And it's not to put down drinking alcohol at all, but I think we want to be somebody maybe a little different, or feel more comfortable, or feel better about ourselves. And so we drink. I'm just wondering, I would think that sexually it would actually impair you, especially men, I've heard. My boyfriends haven't really drunk, so I've never, ever had a guy have an issue, because we never drunk alcohol. I mean, or maybe they just didn't drink about me. I would think that it would impair connection, both physically and emotionally. Tell me what you think about that, even though that's what we're seeing.
Well, the science definitely shows that it reduces libido. Absolutely. It lowers a man's testosterone levels. Absolutely. That's unequivocal. That's been proven with repeated studies. So that should be enough. A man who drinks consistently, his testosterone levels will be compromised and his libido will be compromised. In terms of the connection, I think you're absolutely right. I think most people are drinking to mask something. They're drinking something because they don't want to feel something. They're trying to feel comfortable when they feel uncomfortable. right? There's resistance coming up. And so they seek a refuge in a temporary, illusionary feeling, which relieves you of that stress and anxiety. Now, the problem is, the challenge is that pretty soon you start drinking to relieve you of stress and anxiety that only drinking is creating in the first place. So the drinking creates stress and anxiety. You drink mostly at night, and the next day you've got stress and anxiety, and you need to drink to relieve you of the stress and anxiety that the drinking the night before created.
You mean
And
the
then
hangover?
I'm sorry?
The hangover?
Well, it might be a hangover, but what I'm proposing is that most of people's stress and anxiety is created in part by alcohol consumption. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. If you've got any level of stress and anxiety, which, let's face it, we all do, drinking alcohol will give you a temporary, illusionary relief of that for an hour or two. But then what it does is it creates more stress and more anxiety. I'll give you an example of a common day, like an example of a day for most people. And again, this is just someone who might be drinking a couple drinks a night, right? This is not someone who's an alcoholic. Someone has a couple drinks each night. Within 3 hours of bedtime, they go to sleep. They're not an Olympic athlete like Dotsie, right? Their sleep is compromised. They don't sleep as well. They may sleep 7 or 8 hours, but the quality of that sleep is compromised. So they wake up a little bit tired, a little bit irritable, a little bit foggy. So now they're more prone to snap at their husband or their wife or their children. They get angry at the person who cuts them off in traffic. Because they're tired, they need a little pick-me-up. So they're more likely to reach for a sugary food, like a Kit Kat or a Gatorade or a croissant or something. And then what happens? They have that sugar hit, that carb hit, and then, as we know, the glucose levels go up, blood sugar levels go up, and then what happens? An hour later, crash. So now we're crashing. So now we're eating more sugary foods to give us another spike, and now we're just getting through the day, stress and anxiety. Oh, I just need to get home. Let me just get home and pour a drink. So now we get home, we crack open the bottle, we pour ourselves a glass of wine, and we go, oh, just have a drink here. Now I can relax. Now, this is an illusionary relaxation, right? It's temporary and it's illusionary. And now the cycle continues, because now the drinking is compromising the sleep, and then the sleep is compromising our quality of life, and the quality of life, which is compromised, is now leading us to seek refuge in other things like sugary food or love addiction or sex addiction or porn or shopping or more alcohol or lots of dopamine hits from pleasurable things as opposed to joy. Like pleasure, it's like trying to get a dopamine release, whereas joy, happiness is more consistent. So, a lot of people, most people whose drinking habits are compromising their quality of life, that's a very standard lifestyle. And sadly, it leads to diabetes, increased likelihood of cancer, increased likelihood of divorce or marital strain. You're not present with your kids. And I'm not just saying this like as my opinion. I mean, I've had thousands of clients go through our 90-day stop drinking program. They tell me this almost ad nauseum. When they come to us, they're like, oh, my marriage is strained. I'm overweight. I went to the doctor. My triglycerides levels are high. My blood pressure's high. I don't look great. I used to be fit and healthy 5 years ago, but I put on 30 pounds. I've lost my self-confidence. I'm always stressed. I'm always anxious. I'm not sleeping well. I wake up at 3 a.m. I eat poorly. I socialize and network in business. There's always drinks. I take people to corporate golf days. Alcohol's always around, and on and on and on and on the story goes. And then they stop drinking through our process, and then they go, I've got clarity. I got focus. I got energy. I'm sleeping well. I've saved my marriage. My kids complimented me the other day. Someone said I looked good looking, or complimenting my looks the other day. I got a promotion. I made $100,000 more in my business. It just goes on and on and on.
It sounds like it can be a keystone habit where when you change that, it can have a cascade of other good habits that come along. I just wanted, you said something. this is not about alcoholics. Your program and what you're discussing is people who are casual drinkers. And on your website, it says that your programs are for casual drinkers, because there's a big difference in psychologically and physically between the casual drinker and the alcoholic.
Yes. So to be clear, if someone identifies as an alcoholic, we don't accept them as a client. We just lovingly refer them elsewhere. Where we do our best work is the 50-something, 40-something, 50-something who's been drinking for at least a couple decades. They've been consistently drinking a few drinks a night for many years, more on weekends. Sometimes they drink more. They've said the wrong thing. They've put on some weight. They're back in that blah phase. Remember the blah feeling that I mentioned earlier when I felt like I was just blah? That's the feeling that people have when they come to us. And so what we do is we use the latest neuroscience. We have Harvard and Yale educated coaches and specialists, and we use the latest neuroscience to rewire people's mindset around alcohol. This is not an AA meeting. It's not 12 steps. We're not surrendering to a higher power. It's not rehab. We don't do any of that stuff. Now, I'll say something somewhat controversial now. Well, actually, what I'm saying is not controversial, but it may be construed as controversial. Okay. And that is this. The studies have revealed that Alcoholics Anonymous has a reported 7% success rate. If you gauge success by someone being consistently alcohol-free over the course of 12 months, 7%, which means it has a 93% failure rate of people who attempt it. Now, just to back us up a little bit, because I do often get a lot of hate mail from people who love AA.
You're going to get pushback from me, James.
Yeah. I want to understand who goes to AA, because that helps us. I have zero experience. I've never been to an AA or an OA, and Alexandra's been very open on this podcast that she's been to OA. I want to understand who goes, because very specific difference for your program, right? You said, no, we don't take alcoholics. Yeah. We kindly refer them. Is it mostly casual drinkers or mostly alcoholics, or 50-50 that go to AA in the first place?
I would say this. Most people who go to AA, in my opinion, should not be considering themselves alcoholics. Most people. Okay. Most people, okay. They go there because society says that's really the only option. Now, there are lots more options, including mine and other things out there. But like if people said I got a drinking problem, most people would instinctively go, I'll go to AA. Now, AA has been fantastic in helping millions, tens of millions of people over the years. Fantastic. Incredible for the 7% of people that it seems to work for.
James, you're cherry picking studies, just like we discussed before. There are other studies that say that it's quite a bit higher. And I also want to be clear that these people who go to AA, they feel like alcohol has devastated their life. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be going to meetings. It's a time commitment, very much a time commitment. So unless it was having a hard impact on their life, most of them would not be going to LA. Most of them would not be going to AA. I don't think it serves our audience to cut down AA. I would prefer to build up what you offer, but you can definitely, I have no problem with you saying what your issues are with it. I know you think that being free is a problem, that surrendering to a higher power is a problem, but it has helped a lot of people I know. And it helped me after 12 years of severe bulimia and binging and purging.
Well, so, AA or OA?
OA, but the principles are the same.
The same. I got it. Okay.
It relies on 12 steps, which are incredibly helpful. And I certainly understand the God thing can turn people off. Consider myself an atheist. So I always struggled with that, but then I just let it go and went, okay, maybe I'm not doing it perfectly, but I'm going to just keep going and go on to step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But so that's my defense of AA, because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't just chime in and say that it's helped so many people and it's free. And a lot of people can't afford expensive programs like yours. And it's a diverse group, which I know you say might be an issue because your group is less diverse. But when you go to an AA meeting, you meet people of all different stripes, but you also find your AA meeting that, you relate to. So
I think if it worked for you, keep doing that. And I always say to people, if AA works for you or worked for you, double down on that. Keep doing it. I'm like, I am so thrilled that has worked for you. I can tell you 90% of the folks that come to our organization will say, I went to an AA meeting, I hated it, it didn't work, I didn't relate to the folks. So, again, there's many different ways here to support people. And I seem to, or at least our way seems to get a lot of the people who tried AA and who said it didn't work for them, they didn't like it, they couldn't relate. And again, I support anything that works. And I'll say it again, AA has helped millions and tens of millions of people. And if it's worked for you, keep doing that.
And I think that you're right, that there are two points from doing my research on you that I think you made that are very valuable. One is that there are more than one ways to get whatever issue, addiction we have or problem in our life out, substance problem or behavior problem out. And it's not just a 12-step program. That is great. And it sounds like your program is excellent from what you're saying. Secondly, I also like the fact that you say that it's important that we have an uplifting view and that you feel that AA kind of has a like, hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm an overeater, binger, and here's the terrible thing that happened to me today. And let me share. And that it's overemphasizes that. So, and your program is not that. You look at the joy and the positivity and specific techniques to use in social situations. And I'd like you to talk about that more. Although I have to say that at OA also, one of the reasons I think I stopped binging after just a month was that I saw people who stopped and I never believed that anybody could. So I did see people who had succeeded, and that also was very, very helpful, staying in those rooms for years and years. They kept coming back. So James, go for it. I know you have a lot to say on that.
Here's how we do things differently. Okay. We don't use the word sober, sobriety, recovery. We don't use those words at all. Personally, I never related to the word sober or sobriety. For me, it feels like you're saying no to something because you have to, because under normal circumstances, you would drink or you would do whatever behavior that is bad for you. And so sober implies that like, I can't drink, I shouldn't drink. I've been 1 year sober. I've been 5 years sober. I've got this sobriety. I'm in recovery. We steer clear of that language. Instead, what we support our clients to do is to choose something. Don't say no to something. Choose something. They've done a lot of neuroscience that seems to suggest that it's a lot easier for the mind and the body to understand what you tell it to do as opposed to what you tell it not to do. To use an analogy, you might be skiing, for example. When you're skiing and you're going down the hill and you're like, don't go into the trees, don't fall over. And then you just tend to steer toward the trees and you fall over.
Same with cycling. If you look at the tree, you will run right into it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Yeah, that's true.
That's why we don't resonate with sobriety or the word sober or recovery, any of those kind of things. So what we do is we invite people to choose a lifestyle, an alcohol-free lifestyle. Okay, we're choosing this lifestyle. Now, another way to just break this down is if someone goes into a restaurant and they're desiring not to drink, instead of saying, don't drink, don't go to the bar, don't have wine tonight, what I would submit is instead of that, say, I will easily only drink soda water tonight. I'm going up to the bar. I'm going to order a soda water, ice, and a piece of lime. So now the whole evening is around what you will do. And that's a heck of a lot easier than having a mindset of don't drink, shouldn't drink, can't drink. And anecdotally, it works. Our clients tell us that works. And a lot of them say that's kind of just the penny drops and they go, I've gone from don't drink, I shouldn't drink, I can't drink, I have to stop, I need to stop. And all that language of need, have to. It's very dark. It's like, as opposed to I'm choosing healthy habits, great sleep, conscious communication, personal development. I'm choosing good nutrition. I'm choosing morning sunlight. I'm going to drink lots of water. I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in for the day if I can. I'm going to tell my wife or husband I love her. I'm going to be more connected to my children. This is what I'm going to do. And so what we focus on is that. And candidly, even though my organization is called Alcohol Free Lifestyle and we have a 90-day stop drinking, alcohol rewiring mindset, what we're really doing is just personal development. It's personal development. Strip alcohol away, and now people get to be with themselves and polish areas of their life that they have neglected.
So the difference in a lot of these situations is that the people who I believe go to AA, although you might be right, some of them might not need AA and they might react better to a program like yours, but they have cravings and the physical addiction and also the psychological damage that they use alcohol. It seems like your clients aren't, like you said, you don't accept alcoholics. Can you give us a definition of what's an alcoholic and what's not?
Yeah, well, the way that I describe it, at least when we're taking applicants for our program, if someone needs medical attention for either their drinking or for them stopping drinking, we lovingly refer them elsewhere.
Got it.
So we help people with more of what I would call a psychological addiction, a cultural conditioned addiction. And so we're just rewiring people's mindset. We're putting alcohol through a different lens. We're putting the culture of drinking through a different lens. And that is enough almost always to get people out of that mindset that they need a drink for socializing. They need a drink for stress and anxiety relief. They need a drink to celebrate. But if someone's coming to me or to us and they need hospitalization, again, we'll refer them elsewhere. I'm not a doctor. Right? I am not a doctor. I've interviewed top doctors. I've interviewed top sleep doctors. I have a sleep company. I've interviewed the world's top addiction experts. Our coaches are educated in Yale and Harvard on addiction, but I'm not a doctor. And so I don't, first, candidly, I don't want the responsibility of someone who needs that kind of medical attention, because I'm not equipped to be able to support them with that.
Right. I'm really curious about, Alexandra actually had these questions, and I'm curious because I've never heard of either. There's pills which inhibit dopamine release after drinking alcohol, and some that control withdrawal and cravings. And Alexandra, you can speak better to this, but I'm just so curious because I've never even heard of these. And do people use them on a regular basis? And do they work? This naltrexone and amiprostet. What are those? And if for anybody that's listening that has heard of them and has had stories or maybe hasn't, is this something people are using today to stop drinking? Is that
a question for me or is it for Alexandra?
Yeah, no, it's for you.
Okay.
I just was giving Alexandra the props for that was it's her question. Yeah, that's all.
I mean, people are using them. Again, disclaimer, I am not a doctor, but I will say this. That's not the right word. I was about to say I discourage people from prescription drugs. Let's just say that I encourage people to be prescription drug free. And that, in my view, there are solutions to getting power over alcohol, recovering physically and mentally from alcohol that do not involve prescription drugs. I take more of a holistic approach. So again, I don't feel well equipped to be able to speak to those drugs because I just don't give them that much time or thought, because for whatever reason, our system seems to work, and our system is holistic. Drink lots of water, get sunlight, focus on good nutrition, learn some conscious communication skills, learn how to really listen, communicate with your wife or husband, be present with your children, do new things, that kind of stuff. I am a holistic proponent. I am not a prescription drug, big pharma kind of guy.
Those pills are really for people who are alcoholics. And if you can listen to a TEDx talk by Claudia Christian, who's an actress friend of mine, who talks about her experience with naltrexone, which is my first exposure to it through her. And then I have another friend who used it and found that he lost his desire. It's kind of like the methadone for for alcohol. And then we used to use antabuse, which I think it stops alcohol from breaking down in your body. And so you get really, really sick, and you get a psychological negative association with alcohol, and you're turned off by it.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And I hadn't heard of the other one. I was just doing research on it, acamprosate. And it apparently changes the brain activity, that the withdrawal. That happens.
There's niacin as well. Niacin can stop cravings.
It's a
but it also has the side effects of, you feel quite flushed in the face.
Yeah.
It's like a hot sensation. I haven't tried it myself. I'm just told by others. So
we here, by the way, James, we advocate for no pills either. And I guess I hesitate from saying no pills like you kind of hesitated, because I'm not an alcoholic, so I don't know, and I'm not a drug addict. So, methadone seems like if someone really can't get off it, okay, live your life on methadone. That is better than if you've explored every single thing. We just don't know the physical addiction, how strong it can be. I mean, there's a lot I think we don't know about addiction. So, but I do think a lot of people in America will go for the pill really quickly, because they feel like, oh, here's a quick fix, when they're really not looking at their psychological pain, which might be the real reason. Do you deal with psychological pain? And what is some tips that you recommend to casual drinkers to get alcohol out of their lives?
Well, look, I mean, I think I mentioned the phrase personal development before. I just think when you go alcohol free for 90 days, it's the best personal development process you can go through, because now you've got the clarity and the time to look at your life, and you can look at things like, why do I strive so much for success? Why am I so triggered when someone says something innocuous? Why am I so angry at my father or my mother or my life? Right. And so, you ask, what are some tips for getting off alcohol? I mean, generally speaking, the best thing is do a personal development program of any type, because then when you do that, you become much more comfortable with yourself. And now you're not seeking something to relieve you of the discomfort of being with yourself. And that thing, in most cases, especially heavy drinkers, is alcohol. The reason people are reaching for alcohol is because they're stressed and anxious. And the reason why they're stressed and anxious, because they haven't done the work. They haven't done the personal development work, because they still don't know why they're angry at their mum or their dad or their husband or their wife or their job or their life. I mean, it's not a sexy answer. I know people want like 5 steps to stop drinking, and I'm happy to give you some of those tips and strategies, but none of it's going to be as powerful as just knowing yourself. Now, I did a program called Landmark Education, and so a lot of people know about that. And that was instrumental to me. And that was one program amongst many. And I remember in 2017, I did 3 personal development programs back to back over 8 weeks. I was like, whoa, that was like my midlife crisis, where I was like, what is going on? I'm like having all these breakthroughs in my life, and they didn't always feel good. But I hugged my father for the first time in 30 years. I shaved my hair off. I mean, my hair was thinning at the time, and I was covering it up with like putting this substance in my hair to create the illusion that I had more hair than I did. So I was clearly making a bigger deal about my physical appearance than the normal person, I guess. And I did those personal development programs, and I had breakthroughs, and I'm so much calmer, so less stressed, so less anxious now because of that. And so I would submit to you, the best way to quit drinking alcohol is to know yourself, do a personal development program, and do the work, and run through the rose bushes and get cut up and get bloody a little bit. But on the other side, when you come out, it's beautiful.
Did you find out why you drank?
Well, I mean, look, I mentioned at the beginning of the call cultural conditioning, and I would suggest that really, I mean, I grew up in Australia where men were men and we didn't talk about our feelings and we just had the stiff upper lip and we got on with it. And we went and watched the rugby with the boys and knocked back a few beers. And we went to the cricket all day and 6 hours in the sun and drank the beer. And we went to the backyard barbecues and have a few beers. You know, cultural conditioning really was what started it. And, you know, it was hard to break free from that. And then later on, I was drinking because I didn't like where I was. You know, it was uncomfortable being me. It was uncomfortable not being able to mask the feelings of, let's say, inadequacy at times, or an inferiority complex, or feeling scared about the future, or lamenting the past. You know, all of that. And what's the easy thing to do? The easy thing to do is just reach for a drink. I'm like, oh, I don't have to be with myself anymore. I don't have to feel these uncomfortable feelings. You know, and it shows up for other people in eating addiction. I mean, that showed up for you, Alexandra, I would imagine. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. And so whatever like Dotsy's saying, I can relate, you know, with sugar, for example, because if I feel uncomfortable, or if I'm at a party, you know, it doesn't have to be a party. Just if I feel uncomfortable, I think of food. I think, what can I do to take me out of myself right now? And that's where I go. And other people go to alcohol. Yeah, for sure.
Other people go to love, you know, love addiction, become obsessed and falling in love, or over romanticizing partners. You know, a lot of men turn to porn, women turn to shopping. You know, shopping is like a stress relief. You know, it's like, oh, I don't like being by myself. I'll go shopping. And so it gives you this temporary feeling, you know, like pleasure, and don't have to be with yourself. Other people work too hard, you know, or work a lot. Like they throw themselves into their business or their work, and they become obsessed with their work, and they justify it. Oh, I'm trying to create for the family. You know, I'm doing it for the family, but really they can't sit and be present with themselves. So they have to distract themselves. I mean, I've been guilty of all of these things.
Yeah. And,
you know, again, I can, like, throughout our program, we do give strategies for what to say to, what encouraging you to have a drink. You know, we have strategies for when you go to a restaurant, what to say to the waiter, and how to cut back or how to stop drinking. We do all those things, but nothing's going to be as powerful as just knowing yourself and being able to be with yourself.
Yeah. But I think those strategies are also important. After we've known ourselves, then we have concrete things that we can do when we're unsure, and it's easy to go back to our old habits. But if we have something concrete to do, then we just follow what James told. You know, that's very powerful, to be able to just follow that till it becomes a habit and you make it your own. Can we talk about sleep just quickly? Because you mentioned it several times. You have a sleep company, it's called, and you have these blue blocker glasses called Swannies. I heard you talk about the gold standard of sleep. Can you just walk us through it? You've mentioned several things on our show today already, but it'd be great.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a hint beforehand that there's no prescription sleeping pills in the gold standard of sleep, at least not in my version. Excuse me. So the gold standard of sleep, this is my opinion based on interviewing the world's top sleep doctors and having researched sleep since 2015. First thing in the morning, expose yourself to natural sunlight. Our skin has receptors on it, and when the sunlight hits the skin, it tells our internal body clock, known as our circadian rhythm, this is wake up time. So the body floods with daytime hormones, and also it sets a timer, like an alarm clock, that in 16 hours time, the body is going to want to release melatonin. Now, what most people mistakenly do most mornings is they wake up in the morning and they stay indoors and they don't expose themselves to natural sunlight. So the body's like, is it daytime? Is it not? I know I'm inside with these lights, but it's kind of still dark. Is it 9 a.m. or is it 7 a.m.? Like, the body's confused. So first thing in the morning, go and stand by the window, go outside, get sunlight on your face, sunlight on your hands, and that will help you sleep better 16 hours later. They've done studies that suggest that morning exercise is better for sleep than evening exercise. And they suggest that's because of two reasons. People who exercise in the morning tend to naturally do that more regularly anyway, because life doesn't get in the way. By that time the afternoon comes around, a lot of people drop off and go, oh, I'm not going to exercise now. There's too many things going on. They also suggest that if you exercise too close to bedtime, it raises your internal body temperature, which is not conducive to a great night's sleep, because we actually want a cooler body temperature for optimal sleep, which I'll touch on in just a moment. If you drink coffee within 10 hours of sleep, your sleep will be compromised to a degree. To what degree differs from every person. You're better off just saying, if you drink coffee, you end it at noon, assuming, of course, you're going to go to bed at 10 p.m. A coffee is a stimulant, and that stimulant will stay in your system for about 10 hours, probably a little more. So just to be safe, you probably want to be having your last coffee 10 a.m., 11 a.m., but at the absolute latest 12 p.m. If great sleep is your goal. Now, you can drink coffee at 9 o'clock at night for all I care. But if sleep is your goal, then you're certainly going to want to cut out the coffee around 10, 11, 12 in the morning, and then 12 p.m. is what I mean. At nighttime, the best thing to do is to block as much artificial light at night with a quality pair of orange lensed blue light blocking glasses. Now, we produce those glasses. That's what my company does. Swanwick, we produce orange lens blue light blocking glasses. The University of Washington did a scientific study on our brand of glasses in 2019. And what we encourage our customers to do is to wear these glasses in the last hour before you go to sleep. Now, you don't fall asleep with them on, to be clear. You wear them about 45 minutes, an hour before you go to sleep, because it's an orange lens. It blocks out the artificial blue light that's coming out of your cell phone, your iPad, your TV screen, your bathroom light, kitchen light, microwave light, refrigerator light, reading light, speedometer light, the McDonald's golden arches on the highway light, the traffic light, the street lights. All of that light at night is stimulating your pituitary and pineal gland, which suppresses melatonin. In other words, any light at night makes your mind mistakenly believe that it's still daytime, so it doesn't turn on the melatonin faucet. And that shows up with people having compromised sleep. So the way to combat that, the absolute best thing you can do is live your life by candlelight and never turn on an artificial light again, and live your life in the dark. That is the best thing you can do, hands down. But I would submit that you two lovely ladies and all your listeners ain't going to do that. And I certainly don't do that. So the next best thing you can do is do whatever you can to block as much of that artificial light as possible. The best thing I know to do that is wear a pair of quality blue light blocking glasses. Whether you get them from my company or another company, invest in a pair, get a quality pair if you can, because there's a big difference between a quality pair and excuse my language, a crap pair that you can get for $10 on Amazon. 66 to 69 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature that you want of your room at night for optimal sleep. That's a little chilly, but you can rug up. It's okay. You can rug up as long as the outside temperature is around 65, 69 degrees. That's been shown to be the optimal range for great night's sleep. Absolutely. You want to have dark curtains so the sun doesn't wake you up too early in the morning, because as soon as that sun comes in, touches your skin, guess what? The body's like daytime, even though you might want to sleep an extra hour. So make sure you do get dark curtains so you're not waking up or exposing yourself to light earlier than you would like or should. And then just try to turn off as much of the artificial light in your room when you're sleeping. I mean, I don't know if you ladies have ever been to a hotel room and noticed the alarm clock light, the air conditioning light, the television screen light, the light, there's lights everywhere. And they've done studies that show that even a little bit of that light, even if it's not like shining directly on your skin as you sleep, it's still enough for your body to go, oh, there's a little bit of daytime. Oh, okay. Whereas the melatonin faucet might be full bore, it's now actually only 3/4. So you just want strip the room of as much light as you possibly can. I mean, you asked me to do it quickly. I mean, I could go on, but I think that's pretty good.
Great.
That's
yes, and the
standard.
alcohol and no drinking alcohol.
Oh, Alexandra, thank you. The absolute worst thing you can do for your sleep is to drink alcohol. Thank you. Yeah. You may think that drinking alcohol calms you down, relaxes you, helps you fall asleep. It may be true that it helps you fall asleep. What may be actually more true is that it helps you pass out. But it's true it might help you to fall asleep, but the quality of your sleep is going to be so severely compromised that it's just plain not worth it. One last bonus round. Try to stop eating food within 3 hours of sleep. Because again, if you're eating within 3 hours of bedtime, what are you doing? You're clocking the body in for work because the body's got to digest that food. So you're making the body work when the body doesn't want to be working. The body wants to be sleeping and resting. So no food, no snacks within 3 hours of sleep time. There you go. I'm done.
Okay.
I gotta.
Sorry, Darcy, go ahead.
I was going to say, I got to second a couple of those things as we did a bunch of quantified self-work leading into Olympics. My temp is 68. Yes. I sleep in it every night. My husband says he's freezing all the time. But I'm like, put the blanket on then because it is the best. And people just think that sounds when you said, 66 to 69, I think you said it sounds really cold to people, but it is the best sleep. And one thing I have to add, and I don't know if there's been studies on this at all, earplugs, especially when traveling, they're so light. They don't, you just throw them in the bag. My mom thinks I'm crazy. I'm always with the mask and the earplugs, but wow, those are cheap, light, easy things to travel around with. I mean, I use earplugs at home, and so does my husband because maybe the dog's snoring or whatever. But I don't know what you have learned about earplugs, but wow, those are amazing.
Yeah, they are amazing because noise pollution is a big deal. We produce silicone earplugs at our store, Swanwick Sleep, SwanwickSleep.com. I'm wearing the blue light blocking glasses here as well. I could just showing you the view through the lens here. These are the glasses that the University of Washington did the study on. But yeah, I'm with you on the noise pollution, Dotsie. That's a big thing. In fact, I was when I first got to London a few weeks ago, I stayed in a hotel and they put me on the corner of a hotel overlooking a beautiful park, Tavistock Park. And I thought, oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But then I realized there's a hospital 2 blocks from the hotel. So it's like, it's like sirens and you got the traffic going this way and the traffic going this way. And all night it was like cars honking their horns and sirens going off. And so I had to request to be moved to the less desirable in terms of view, internal part of the hotel, which overlooked like an unsightly air conditioning unit. But I much preferred that because it was deathly silent. And it was dark because on the other one with the view, the sun was creeping through the curtains. And so sometimes the least sexy hotel room is actually the most beneficial for a great night's sleep.
Good to know. Yeah. I had one last question because I know you mentioned the Oura Ring, which you're wearing. And I've also heard Apple Watches can understand how well you sleep. How do they do that? Is that just body temperature or what are they measuring? How can a ring on your finger measure how well you slept?
Yeah, it measures movement and it does somehow track your REM sleep, your deep sleep, your rest sleep. It knows it in terms of when you go to sleep and your body temperature and your heart rate as well. It can tell whether you're sleeping or whether you're still awake or whether you're tossing and turning, whether you're in deep sleep, whether you're in light sleep. I'm not a scientist. I don't know exactly how they do it, but they've been around long enough. I've met the founder. They've done so many studies on it now, peer-reviewed studies that I trust the science.
But you're right. It's temperature and movement. And
it's temperature and movement, Dossie, right? Yeah.
Right. Because I don't know if you remember the Zeo. I mean, you were into this, like it was 2010, 11, 12, they were in business and it actually, you slept with a band on your head. That's where I did all my sleep stuff. They went out of business because I think people didn't like to sleep with bands on their heads, but that was able to actually look at your brain waves for REM and deep sleep. And right. But I mean that it's got to be practical for people. So a ring is just so much more comfortable. So slightly less accurate for sure than reading brain waves. But yeah, the thing I think people forget that's awesome about any of those watches or rings or anything is you are comparing yourself to yourself.
Right.
So, So they're very accurate if you're just doing that, right? If you want to compare yourself to Frank, not so much, but you don't care how Frank sleeps. you care how you sleep. So I think they can be incredibly effective in all of the things that you're talking about, even though they might not be like, 99.9% accurate. You're just looking at how last night compared to this tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a form of accountability for me, is what I find. And
Good point.
it tracks my steps every day. And if I go to Aura now, I'll just show you my steps today. Activity, I'm up to 8,877. I try to get at least 10,000. Hang on, it's updating. 14,412. There you go. But anyway, it's a great form of accountability,
James, where can people find you?
Alcoholfreelifestyle.com is where you'll find our stop drinking services. The sleep company is at swanicksleep.com, or you can also type in Swannies or Swanwick into Amazon and you'll find our glasses. I'm on Instagram at James Swanwick and TikTok, and we've got a YouTube channel and a podcast, both named Alcohol Free Lifestyle.
Right on.
Great. Thank you. I know you're helping so many people every day, both with their lives in general, with alcohol and sleep. You're doing such great work. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate that, Alexandra and Dotsie. And thank you this was a really fun conversation, challenging for a little bit in there, I thought.
Good. It was healthy, you guys. That was the best part of the podcast. So
I got a little heated, James, and I was watching you and you were just sitting back listening like a good leader. And I was thinking, he does a lot of programs with lots of people who are probably venting and things. So thank you. Kudos to you. I don't usually, Dotsie, it's true. I don't usually challenge a guest like that. So anyway, it was
very cool. If you edit that out, I quit.